Worship of manifested, Vidyakwa, manifested means when God takes a form, a particular form, like Krishna, Ram, and all. Unmanifested will mean the formless aspect, right? So the Bhagavad Gita, initially in other chapters also, the Bhagavad Gita has said, one can worship the manifested, formless, God having a form, and others can also we can worship the unmanifested, Saki, formless, right? So both type of devotion will lead to the same God. There's nothing different. Pareil comme toute la rivière will end in the ocean. The water will end in the ocean. In the same way, this bhakti, this devotion, will reach the only supreme, right? But why is it that there's a difference? Some people pray God with a form, others pray God without a form, that is formless. It all depends on the person, right? If I'm able to worship, to meditate upon the formless, fine, good for me. But certain people can be so distracted, right? Their mind can be so distracted. They need a form in front of them. So they use that mode of worship, that is worshiping the God having a form, right? And worshipping God having a form that is manifested is quite easier for some of us, right? But eventually, we will have to reach that stage quand nous pouvons spiritually advance soul. Nous automatiquement come to the stage where we don't need a form of God to meditate upon. We will connect directly to the formless. It will come when we get spiritually advanced. But initially, we can pray manifested form. So Krishna advises Arjun to practice karma yoga and worship the manifested God. Krishna is saying that to worship the manifested God who has taken a form, and to practice the karma yoga. Arjun, he has to practice the karma yoga being a warrior, right? That is convenient to him. He will have to. Different methods to realize God. First method, Krishna explains, to fix the mind on God with undivided attention. Means mind pas divert at all. You fix the mind on God. This is difficult because mind wanders, Even if during a tuition, for example, you don't concentrate 100% on what the teacher explains, because this mind is so fickle, right? It wanders, but we'll have to learn to train the mind, to tame the mind, so that the mind can focus on the God. That's the premier step to realize God. Second step is perseverance, or we call that practice. When you are concentrating on God, when we are concentrating on God, the mind will wander. So what do we need to do to bring back the mind again to God? The mind will wander again. We bring back the mind again. This is the practice. And at the end, it will be perfect. And the third step is to dedicate all actions to God. This is what we call to surrender to God, to dedicate all our actions to Him. Characteristics of an ideal devotee. This is what Krishna explains here. A true devotee is free from hatred, free from arrogance. He does not injure others, that is, he practices non-violence. He is pure in thoughts, in words, in actions. He is free from desire. He is alike to enemy and to friend. Actually, pas supposé an enemy, but it means to say that he is impartial and he abandons attachment. That is the detached, the renounced. That is the true characteristic of an ideal devotee. So here Krishna is focusing on this in this chapter, on bhakti yoga, right? So we pre-manifested, one manifested, no problem. What kind of people can do manifested worship or unmanifested worship? At the end, we will all worship the unmanifested, right? And the three methods to reach God and the characteristic of an ideal devotee. So this is actually what is there in the chapter 12. Bon, il y a beaucoup de choses, but this is how we can actually summarize. We are not going to dig deep in all the chapters. To start so far, they are just summary. The main ideas, the summary of the chapters, right? So we continue with the chapter 3. This one is very interesting. Chapter 3 to 13 talks about the kshetra and the kshetragya vibhag yoga. That is the distinction between the field and the knower of the field, right? So understand, the body is called the field. He who knows it is called the knower of the field. The one who knows the field is known as the knower of the field. In the field of the body, man reaps the fruits of his actions, good and bad actions, right? Kanuda bodila, in the field of the body, when we are in the body, we reap the fruits of our karmas. There is an intelligent principle living in the body, right? The body, li peut function, li peut act, li peut faire actions, good or bad, but there is an intelligent something living in the body, and that is called the Atma, right? Then we have Prakriti. This is one way to explain field and knower of field, right? The field and the knower of field. And deuxième façon pour expliquer field, c'est Prakriti. And Purush is the knower of field, right? Sorry, Purush is not well written here. No. So, right? So another way to explain that, field and knower of field, field Prakriti, knower of field, the Purush. And we say that, I guess, once Purush and Prakriti together, they do creation, right? So, donc, ils marchent ensemble, right? So, knowledge is understanding of both the field and knower of field. You know, in the Samkhya Yoga, those who do main, they learn that in the Samkhya Yoga, we learn about the Purush and the Prakriti. How to get moksha as per the Samkhya is by knowledge, understanding both Purush and Prakriti, understanding the Kshetra, the Kshetragya. Si le mot Kshetra, Kshetragya est difficile pour eux, it's all about field and knower of field, right? So as per the Samkhya also, this is part of the Samkhya here, what Krishna is teaching. Knowledge is important for us to liberate. We need to understand, to have the knowledge of Prakriti, of Purush. We need to develop the wisdom to be liberated, right? Knowledge concerning the field, the Kshetra, is called lower knowledge. Knowledge of Kshetragya, the knower of field, is called the supreme knowledge, Apara This is para. Bon, finalement, on réviser ça. This is called para vidya. Right. For example, you know, when we learn subjects, academic knowledge, right? This is called lower knowledge because we use that knowledge to earn a living, right? It keeps us involved in the material world. But when we have the knowledge of the soul and the Brahman, this is called the para vidya, the highest knowledge, right? And actually both are important. Today we are living in such a world that this lower knowledge is very important. And equally in this world itself, the highest knowledge also is bien important. So in the same chapter 13, what Krishna talks about, the nature and modification of the field. The field, publié, c'est the body, right? The field, that is the kshetra, is made up of 24 properties. Dans Samkhya aussi, nous en avons 5 basic elements: earth, water, fire, ether, space. You don't need to remember all these things. We're just going through it quickly for you to learn. We have 5 senses of knowledge. Normalement, quand nous cause 5 senses, nous cause généralement the 5 senses of knowledge, right? But in fact, we have 10 senses. 5 senses of knowledge and 5 senses of action. Mais en général, quand nous cause sens, comme nous parle de control of senses, etc., we are actually talking about the 5 senses of knowledge, which is the eye, the ear, the skin, the tongue, and the nose. And the 5 senses of action, the hands, the feet, mouth, anus, and genital organ. We have 10 senses. That is why, you know, the name Dashrath, the father of Ram. Dash means 10. Dashrath means the one who has control upon his 10 senses, right? So this you can remember, we have 10 senses. We have 5 sense objects: the sight, sound, smell, taste, taste and touch. Mental traits, you know, our mind keeps on changing in about modification which happen in our mind, right? We have the ego, the mind, primordial matter, and the intellect. En tout, les supposés faire 24. Les faire 24, c'est-à-dire, right? 7 modification of the physical aspect. Nos physical aspect physique est changé. Comment? Based on desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, assemblage of various parts of the body. Pas tout le monde est pareil, right? And the monde sans haine dessous l'âme, right? Intelligence, fortitude. So what is all meant here when Krishna is explaining all these things? So say the differences we might be having, right? And modifications are always there. Ça m'a un changement là tous les temps, c'est comme si you desire something, you are working hard to possess that something. You have hatred. Your physical aspect changes. Ça m'a un changement là tous les temps dans la vie. It's just a matter of recognizing it, right? We have 20 virtues which Krishna talked about. So you can go through it later, like humility, non-injury, forgiveness, respect for teachers, etc. It continues here, right? Like absence of excessive attachment for son, wife, and all. away from the crowd, constant pursuit of spiritual knowledge, etc. Right? So Krishna talks about these 20 virtues to be inculcated. Right? And he continues in the chapter 13. He talked about the Lord defines. That includes the quality of the Supreme. I did not add all the details. You know the details, the beginningless, endless. He creates, he destroys, he preserves, etc. Right? And here we talked about Purusha and Prakriti in this very chapter. Purusha and Prakriti, they do creation, and it involves the three gunas as well, the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas. Different paths to salvation. You will see in different chapters, Krishna talked about different things, different paths, different things to be done to attain salvation. Right? That is what makes Bhagavad Gita quite universal. If I can't do one thing, I can do the other thing to get it, to get moksha. So the path of meditation, which I told you, Raja Yoga, the path of knowledge, Gyan, Karma, Bhakti. And we know Bhakti is the easiest, right? The sense of spirituality, spirituality when the devotees sees the imperishable in all creatures. C'est quoi ça, seeing the imperishable? Imperishable, c'est quoi? C'est the Atma, oh God, right? We need to see that God in everyone in terms of humans, everything created by God, in plants, in nature, in animals, whatever, right? That is the very essence of spirituality, to see that unity, to have that unity, in fact, right? Chapter 14. I love this chapter, right? Personally, I love this chapter. Gatos. You learn different things, good things here. Well, there's a chapter see we learn, but this is one of my favorite. Gunatraya Vibhag. Le mot traya veut dire trois. Right. Like we say for Krishna. Sorry, for Shiv, we call him Triyambaka, Traya. It's three is from the word Traya, which means three. People are classified into three groups. This is very good one. Do read this chapter for your knowledge. You will learn many things here. People are classified into three groups. We can be good, we can be ordinary, or we can be demons, right? There are three types. Sorry, these three types are based on the three gunas. Sinu good, sinu sattva, sinu ordinary, nuena rajas, sinu demo, nuena tamas. Right? The three gunas are present in all human beings, but in different degrees, right? You know that. Let's say when you are angry, say your tamas gun, which is predominating, the degree of rajas gun increases. You are feeling lazy, you are feeling sleepy, the degree of tamas gun increases. Li still here sattva and rajas, li diminue sattva and rajas, but when, for example, I'm sleepy, tamas predominates. Diminue, right? So there is always a fluctuation happening among the three gunas. Quand fluctuation arrêté, c'est quand nous mourons. Bien sûr. Then there is no fluctuation at all. Now, characteristics of the three gunas. Sattva gun, comment nous t'a décrit in terms of qualities, pure, stainless, calm, bright, joy, blissful. If you feel all these qualities, means sattva gun is predominating. Rajas, you have desire, passion, greed, activity, attachment, right? To say rajas. laziness, indifferent, darkness, confusion. These are all signs of tamas gun. What are the functions of the three gunas? Sattva gun gives us joy and peace. Rajas, so function say action. Tamas prompts us to error. Si nous payons rajas dans nous, let's say, n'est pas possible qu'il paye, but it is. Let's say rajas is important because rajas li kumandia and muddeya, right? Without it, our vehicle will not function. Rajas is important, but nidzamitli under control, right? Symptoms of the gunas. Kanvena sattva, pure mind, our senses are pure or controlled, we have peace. When we feel unrest, restlessness, beaucoup ban désir, selfish, when we are selfish, greed, tout ça c'est rajas. Inactivity, parfois gain paresse, pas envie faire non, c'est tamas gun. Fear, dullness is tamas gun. Negligence also. Like une église au travail, une église en la case, une église en relationship. All these say tamas gun, right? And maybe you can be thinking right now, in a day, you can have all of them at different times. Le matin, levé, you feel so, your mind is so pure, you can learn many things. You go to school, you learn, ou commence un désir, ou envie dormir, ou envie manger. Then you feel so dull, you feel sleepy during the class, whatever. Just an example, right? So in a day, we go through all these, the gunas keep on predominating like this, right? But we have the control, we need to control them. Il paraît pour moi, si moi peux bad action, bad thought for someone. Let's say I'm thinking bad for someone. I need to cancel that thought immediately. Yeah, no, I need to think good for the person. Why should I think bad? Il paraît for such about the gunas, right? Let's say you feel you begin to be laziness, but when a devoir affair. One example. You're so tempted, by that laziness. You want to sleep while allongé ou assis au sofa, etc. But then you realize, no, I have some work to do. Laziness pourrait dire dans la tête, non. It happens with all of us. But if we are able to overcome that, that will be very good. This is, overcoming that laziness is in itself what you call control of the senses, right? You're controlling them. Destiny of three types of death. Sattvic person, heaven, we get heaven after death. If we are rajasic, we are born again. If we are tamasic, we are born again, mais seulement in lower species, like in animal bodies or plant bodies, to some, right? Rising above the modes of liberation, to rise above three gunas, that is to attain liberation. And dimun nutun kumanundian when atule trois gundon. But at times, most of the time, if tamasing is predominating, make sure that rajasic predominates more. Gradually, I need to improve like this. Comme on arrive en stage, que mon capable, rajasic predominates more, then I need to do what? Make sattva predominates more. Nous essayons de diminuer ça dans les autres là. This is all done by the control of the senses and the mind. Characteristic of gunatita. Gunatita means the one who is above the three gunas. Normalement, who is above the three gunas? C'est God. And when we become perfect, quand we reach that level of, moksha, nous ici, nous become gunatita. We are called to be beyond the three gunas. And at that point, we don't have ego, we don't have arrogance, we work for the welfare of people, we look upon everyone equal, right? So as I was telling you, the chapter 14, quite nice. I love it personally, and now it's up to you. Bon, mon petit, ça, je trouve ça pied là, lion l'envers, right? We are going to talk about it. So here we talk about the Purushottam Yoga, that is the supreme being. The world tree, the world is like a tree, a vriksha. Vriksha is a tree. So Krishna compares the created world to an inverted people tree. Inverted, normalement, un pied se racine en bas dans la terre et il grow the trunk and the leaves. Think about the tree inverted. Okay, the roots are above, branches are below, right? Leaves of the tree are like the Vedic hymns, and mantras and prayers. The tree emanates from God. Think about the tree, the roots, for example, the above, below in the sky somewhere, I don't know. And then the leaves living en bas, right? So the root is like it is coming from above, from the source, from the Lord, right? The tree emanates from there. And then the branches spread everywhere in the world. In the same way, samsara has its source from God. But Krishna is explaining the inverted tree only to explain that God has created the world. God has created us. And he has given us knowledge in terms of the scriptures to sa. Why to lindunu? Like the lower part, leaves to sa. Lindunu to sa. But it's up to us to learn them, to put them into practice, right? The supreme abode, virtues required to reach the supreme, free from selfishness, pair of opposite detachment to self. You know that already. The soul is a fragment of God. We have said, no, the soul comes from the supreme soul. You see this thing which I made here? Astelamo get to Salamo to be bien comic, whatever. Then last year I was explaining this to those doing upper. So you see, this is the man here. Let's say this is God, right? And this is the world he has created. So he wanted to do creation. What he did, rays came out from him and spread everywhere. Et ça man rays là, sans même qu'il fait creation. Or you can say God multiplies himself. Godly dans nous, you too, in me. God has multiplied himself in the form of trees, animals, nature, spirits to some, right? So this is about the God. Glories of the Supreme Being. God is sunlight in the sun. C'est ça même qui nous dit, bon Dieu dit dans tous affaires, in everything. In the sunlight of the sun, there is God. In the moonlight, in the heat, fertility in soil, say God. Nourisher, he's the nourisher of plants. In the herbs, in the vegetables, in everything, there is God. Right? Three aspects of divine existence. Il y a trois aspects. God has three aspects. the changing and perishable matter called kshara. Matter keeps on changing. Unchanging, imperishable called akshara. That is the soul, is akshar. Here, kshara can be prakriti, nature, matter. It changes. The Purushottam, the supreme being who pervades and supports all. Right? So these are the three aspects of divine existence. Then you have the chapter 16. I'll try to finish it today. We don't have much. To say que trouver is very nice for you to learn. Please grab everything, right? Here we talk about the Daiva Sura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. That is the distinction between divine and demoniac quality. And à deux mots here. Daiva avec Asur. Daiva veut dire God, the gods. Asur veut dire démon. Right? So distinction between the divine and the demoniac qualities. These are the divine qualities. Too long to read, but like reading sacred books, straightforwardness, non-injury, tranquility of mind, modesty, absence of hatred. Ça, c'est by 26 virtues Krishna talks about. The demoniac traits, hypocrisy, arrogance, ego, anger, harshness, ignorance of values. Tout ça, c'est les contraires. C'est demoniac qualities. Effects of both. If we develop all those good qualities, we become noble, we become good cultured. Et bien sûr, si nous prenons hypocrisie, anger, and all, we become devils. People of demoniac nature, the saman qualities la, no good conduct, bad action, selfish. Because God is a myth. They also don't believe in God. They can be atheist. They are slaves to the senses and all. What they do only is to eat, drink, and merrymaking. There are three gates to hell. If we need to enter hell, c'est ça trois chemins qui peuvent amener nous vers hell. Desire, anger, and greed leads us to hell. Scripture is the guide. What Krishna say, we need to read scriptures parce que c'est une façon qui, c'est the knowledge given by God. So we need to read them. The scriptures are like our guides to reach moksha, right? We are left with 2 chapters. We do that. So chapter 17, here Krishna talks about threefold division of faith. Ça aussi intéressant. Assez intéressant. There are 3 kinds of faith. Three kinds of. A man is what his shraddha makes him. Faith, we call that shraddha. Our faith makes us what we are. Men of divine nature worship Supreme without any motive. Si nous sommes sattvic predominating, we won't pray for a reason. We just pray. There's no motive behind our prayer. Those who have rajasic, they worship the demigods and demons for fulfillment of desires. Those full of dull dispositions, tamasic, propitiate the evil spirit and ghost to harm others. Ça, c'est un mauvais travail, qui existait durant faire tout ça. Ça, c'est totally tamasic people. These are 3 kinds of faith. So we need to, bien sûr, develop the sattvic one. There are 3 kinds of food. The sattvic food. Sattvic food increases our life, stamina, our health, give us peace, purity, right? Rajasic food, type of people like to eat bad food. The Rajasic food usually ban manger qui bitter, sour, salty. Right? They cause damage to health. This kind of food brings pain and sorrow. Right? Elle mangeait qui trop salé. Si vous mangez, il y en a dit beaucoup. Vous pouvez attention. Logique. Right? So this is Rajasic food. Et elle mangeait qui trop chaud aussi. Is spicy, hot, is Rajasic food. The Tamasic food, half-cooked, tasteless, stinking, and gâté, for example, polluted, impure, to some, right? So food is very important in spirituality, what kind of food we are eating. And those who eat tamasic food cannot do spiritual practices. Non-vegetarian food classifies in tamasic food. So those who eat tamasic spiritual practices, c'est pas qu'ils sont pas qu'à faire, but it get delayed quelque part, right? As food is, so the mind is, right? We also say that we are what we eat, right? Can you please rejoin?